Welcome back, guys. This is my new tutorial. This is follow mouse on hover. Whenever you mouse on any image, you can see the black gray box is following. So let's dive into our tutorial, and this is also responsive. So we have in our code, we have list items of 15 images with LIs with the class name box, and we also have a caption with the span tag inside every li, and at the bottom just before the UL we have span class is equal to item. So this span item will follow the mouse on hover. So I have my basic setup. Now let's create my CSS file. So I just copy paste my background styles. Let's create variables. $W is to 150px, this is for the width, and $H for height 100px. So we will assign this width and height to the images, for the every li. So let's create the list item first, the UL class, the ID is list, so hash list, and I'm just copy pasting from my previous example. So you can see in the browser the output, and now creating the li which has a class name box. You can see the box class names here. So I'm going to paste this, and you can see these images are aligned like a 5x3 columns and rows. And let's style the span, which is caption. So we have the caption here for the span tag. So let's style this, and just copy pasted, and I made opacity 0. Let me show opacity 1 in the output, and we can see the caption text aligned center. Let's bring back this to 0, and let's create the image. So we have the images here. We are going to style these images now. I'm going to paste. So with 100%, now you can see all images clearly, and I'm going to, you can see these captions again. I'll make the opacity 0, and let's create hover. Let's make the span to opacity 1. Let's hover. You can see the captions. So let's reduce the time. Let's make it fade 0.5 seconds. Let's create a keyframe for this animation fade. Let's also decrease the opacity of image when we hover. I'm going to make 0.15. Now you can see the caption text clearly because we have decreased the opacity of the background image on hover, and I just pasted the keyframes. You can see the text displaying 0.5 seconds. Now I'll just close this and create item. So this is the gray box which will follow the mouse. So let's first style this. So this is the span we are going to create, and I just pasted it. We can't see now anything because we haven't done anything. So I have here three types. I have here three methods to do this. First, let's check the first method. So list. So we have 5 images in a row, and we have 3 rows. So there are 5 columns and 3 rows. So let's declare the variables. Columns 5, and let's give some comments. When we have 5 images in a row, so next we will declare the number of rows. We have 3 rows, so let's comment this when we have 3 rows, and let's give the width 750px. Actually 750px is already given in the top, so we have, let's comment this. So 150px is the width, so 150 into 5, 750. So we have the main div 750px width, and now let's give the maximum nth child, because we have 15 images, so we don't want more than 15 here, so let's give the maximum limit to 15. So the total images are 15. Now let's limit this to min and to the min column into rows, that is 5 into 3, 15. So we have 5 rows into 3 columns, and the maximum nth child will be 15. And now let's create the for loop. $I from 1 through limit, and let's create the li n dot box and nth child, and let's create interpolation. For I is to h over, and now we will target the item. Now let's create more variables. So this is the main logic behind this. Let's give the row seal. So we are going to make this a rounded number. So the I by number of columns. This is to determine the row number, and we will adjust the based on row. Let's create one more row offset. Row -1 into our columns and our width. That's edges based on row. And let's give the left and top positions. I and width. Let's assign the top. Let's give the row. $H, and let's give the transition 0.25 seconds please, and the opacity to 0.7. I think something is opacity to 0.7, and let's save this. So we have some errors, we missed something. Let me. So I have given the row. There is a dollar missing. Let's save this. Now we have the images. Now let's check on mouse over. You can see it is just following the mouse from the variables which we have assigned to the left and top. So we have done this for the desktop, and this is the main logic for the 3 methods which we are using, which we will use. Now I will create the media query. Let's create the responsive. So this is common. I'm just copy pasting here. The only thing we need to change the rows and the columns. Let's make 4 by 4. So 4 rows and 4 columns and 600 px width, and this will be the same. Let's inspect this. Let's stretch. Now let's decrease the width. Now we have 4 by 4 columns, 600 px, and it is working fine. We didn't change anything, only we changed the rows and the columns. So this is so simple and easy. Only by changing the rows and columns and the width, we can create the mouse over follow. And let's copy paste this whole thing again before, so you can see how it generated 15 times. That's why we have created here a limit. So this is not, it should not extend more than 15 because the length is 15. So first let me copy paste and let me finish this media queries, and I'll change this to 600 px, and this will be 3 rows, sorry 3 columns and 5 rows, and this will be 450 px. And let's save this and check in our browser. 5 by 5, it is working fine for 5 by 3. Now 4 by 4 is working fine. Now let's check 3 by 5. So it is working fine for 3 by 5. So let's make it more smaller for two columns. So if it is 2 columns, we have to assign 8 rows because we have 15 images. Let's copy paste and make this to 450 px, and this is 300 px. 2 columns, 8, because if it is 2, we have to give 8 rows. 8 2s are 16. We have 15 images, but still we have to assign 8. So let me change all these things. 3 by 5, this comment section, 4 by 4. So let's check in our browser. Let's check the CSS, it's fine. Let's refresh. You can see the 2 columns. So it's working fine. So we have done with our first method. So let me comment all these things. Actually we have finished, but I want to show you 3 methods. The final method is I prefer the final method, which is method 3. But first let me comment this. Now let's create our second method. Let's create mixin, responsive styles. Let's create our parameters, our width and columns and rows. We are creating as multiplier instead of writing rows, and the maximum nth child. Let's create our list. So our width, and just copy paste this one, calculating the limit, the maximum range, the nth child. So let's rename this to multiplier. Let's copy and paste this. Let's uncomment this one and format and save. And we need to create the column and multiplier and nth child values, just like here. We have defined the rows and columns, so we need to define here. So let's create our list, and number of columns 5, and our multiplier, which is rows, is 3, and our maximum nth child is 15 as usual, and width 750 px. let's copy paste this. And you can see it's working. So let's create our media query. Let's use include responsive styles. You can see the 3 parameters. Let's define them. 4x4, and this is 15. So let's copy paste again. Let's change this to 600px. Let's change these values. 3x5, and this is 450. 2x8. We forgot to change here. 450px, and this is 300. Now let's verify in the browser. So the 3x5 is working. Now 4x4 is working, and 3x5 is working, and 2x8 is working fine. So I want to decrease the code, so let's see what I'm going to modify. I'm just going to copy paste this and want to make this to 1920, and this is 750px and 3x5, so 5x3. So I don't need this anymore, so I'm going to comment this whole thing because I don't want to repeat the same code again here. It's already here, so we are repeating here again. So I just commented this whole thing and made a media query here. So you can see the 5x3 is working fine. So this is our second method. Let's check in the browser. See, we have mentioned 1980, 1920. If it is more than 1920, it will break because we have assigned in a media query. Why I have done this? Because I don't think we will have more than 1920 width. So if you still want to fix this, then you have to comment this whole thing, this media query of 1920, and uncomment this thing, this list. So you can modify according to your requirement. So I'm going to comment this whole thing again. So the method 2 I'm commenting. So let's create our method 3. So the method 3, which is the final one, which I prefer. So let's create our method 3. So let's create the maximum nth child 15, and let's create breakpoints. This is for the media query. Let's create for the 768px first. Let's define our columns and rows. So we are doing this one. We have 4x4 column here. So let's create columns 4 and the number of rows to 4, and the width is 600px. We are not doing for 1920, we will look into that later. So let's create these things first. 600px, and this is 3x5, this is 450. Let's copy one more time. 450 and 2x8 column, and this is 300. So we don't need a comma for the last one. So let's close this and create our list. So let's define our default column. So I'm doing this for 1920, so this one, and later we are going to comment this whole thing again. So first let's create for the desktop. default number of rows 3 with 750px, and let's create a column. So the default column and number of rows with the default number of rows. Let's create our limit for the maximum nth child. And let's create our loop. Let's copy this and paste, then uncomment this one and format our code, and let's save. So you can see the desktop, it's working. This will work for 920 and 920 above for any desktop, because we didn't mention for any media query. So let's comment this. Now I am mentioning the 1920. I just commented to make the code shorter. So I'm defining the 1920 here. Let's make 750px. Let's create each. Let's create the breakpoint, settings, breakpoints, let's create mixing media. Maximum width as a breakpoint. And let's define our values which we created above by using map get. You can see here we are importing these values. Let's import for the other things like column and rows. For the column is to map -get. Let's make the same settings and call. And for the rows, let's make it settings and number of rows. And I'm going to copy this and paste here and uncomment this. Let's format and let's remove this. Now you can see we have very less code, but anyway I'm going to keep it there. Let's save this. I'll check in the browser. Let's check 3x5. So we missed something. There is some issue here. Let me see where I made a mistake. This is fine. This code looks fine. Maybe at the top. Okay, this is 5x3. Yeah. Now let's see. It's working fine. The 5x3 is working fine. Let's go 4x4. It's working fine. And 3x5 looks good. And 2x8. Oh, there is some mistake again. I need to change. It's 2x8, it's 2x5 here. Let's refresh. Okay, it's working fine. So this is it. I have finished this tutorial. I hope you liked it. So please subscribe and comment. Any feedback is appreciated. So thank you for watching and these are the three methods which I used, and I prefer the third one, this third method. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more tutorials. Thank you.